Hello, Dickheads. I'm back. Richard by himself today, doing another night. I'm trying to get you guys as much content as possible because I'm heading on vacation. I think I mentioned it a couple times, but when this episode comes out, I would have already been in Mexico for 6 days. I would have already worn a sombrero, probably said some vaguely questionable things like calling people essay or like underlay to someone or something like that. I probably puked from drinking too much tequila, embarrassed myself in front of my children. I'll still be in Mexico when this comes out, so arriba? I don't know. I guess I don't know what to say. I think when I come back, I'll let you know if that was the thing I should have said. So, before we get into our night today, let's talk about the lie I told last episode. If you haven't been listening to these Knights of the Round Table episodes, and this is the first one you jumped into, I just want you to know that I make up a lie about every night in every episode. This is not going to be any different. I'll definitely do it here, but I let you know the next episode what the lie was. I just hope they become canon. I hope someone's doing research on a Night of the Round Table and like makes their own podcast or submit some stuff and thinking like all of this is true. By the way, if you are doing research for your whatever term paper on Arthurian legend, this is terrible. I do like a week worth of research max, and I don't really dig in that deep for these. I just kind of do scratch the surface. I love the Arthurian stuff, but like if I were to do, people get PhDs in this stuff, you know? Like the Studalian cycle of King Arthur is in full effect right now. So take that for what you will. I think the lie from the last episode from Sir Gaheris, I think it was a pretty obvious one. Like I don't think I could have tricked too many people. Although as fun as that sounds, he didn't have a whip. The scene from Indiana Jones isn't inspired by Guy Harris. He did like planting stuff and agriculture and growing things and stuff like that, but he did not use the vine as a whip. He did use the plant though to bring his brother Gawain and Mordred back from the interdimensional prison. That was real. That was canon. But the whip isn't. All right, so the subject of our day, that brings us to where we are today. Sir Agrevain. Sir Agrevain of the Hard Hand.
An elite team of private detectives.
What if balloons are aliens? Maybe that's the key component we're missing.
Cover-ups.
John's guilty.
Mysteries that need to be solved.
Maybe Mormons need mountains.
Richard, shut up.
Another brother of the Orkney clan. I don't really know. I couldn't really figure it out. It's from a Gawain story. We haven't done Gawain yet, where he gets his Agrevain of the Hard Hand moniker in the Sir Gawain and the Green Knight story, which we'll probably do next episode, was Gawain. So I don't really know why he's called of the hard hand, but I do know that Gareth was called soft hand. So I do like how Gareth and Agrevain, the two brothers, have like a hard hand and a soft hand. I did read on one website that the hard hand nickname came from him being just strong, like his punches would hurt a lot. Like it was said that both his arms had so much punch power that it could dent a piece of armor. So that would make him the hard hand for sure. It's like very literal, but I find a lot of this stuff's very literal. Agrevain was the son of King Lot and Morgause, Arthur's sister. Another one of Arthur's nephews. We're the third of the four kids of Morgause and Lot, so Gawain will be the last, the oldest, because our subject today, Agrevain, is the second oldest. He's the tallest. A lot of the stories call him the most handsome of the brothers, or at least early versions of the stories. In later cycles, they make him like a short guy, and they call him misshapen, which I find fun. In the Stu Dillon cycle, though, I'm gonna call him a hottie. So now it's canon. He's a hottie. The whole misshapen stuff's done. All right. When he was at school, like Orkney school, school for Orkneys. Anyways, school back home, King Locke's castle. He got the same education as his brothers. They learned all the same stuff: courtesy, chivalry, swordsplay, horsemanship, whatever, all that stuff. They do mention a lot for Agrevain that he learned how to fight with an axe at the age of 15, which is very specific and now makes me think that he always uses an axe in all of his adventures, which is a fun night. We don't really see too many people carrying an axe. It's always like a lance, a spear, or a sword, to be honest. The more I read about these Orkney knights, the more I'm learning about how they became knights. Like, I didn't really grasp it on until I got into Agrevain about what actually happened. So early in Arthur's career, he fought a bunch of Saxons, and King Lot was part of the war fighting the Saxons. He was on the opposite side. I don't even know if he was on the opposite side for this, but I know he's on the opposite side on one of the wars. I don't know if it was Battle of the Britons or not, I do know that the three oldest boys, Agrevain, Gawain, and Gaheris, abandoned their mother and father. She was evil, but his dad, King Lot, to run off. I do know that they run off at a young age, teenage years, to fight with Arthur in the war against the Saxons, and they were very successful in these wars. This is how they got knighted. There's this one story where Agrevain, while fighting an evil Saxon lord in the name of King Arthur, during a battle breaks through a Saxon line. That Saxon king that they were actually fighting had taken a bunch of Arthur's men and Agravain's brother Gawain as hostage. So to Arthur and Agravain, this battle was very important to them, important to the war in general, but it also would save a bunch of imprisoned men, which Arthur really liked. But to Agravain, this battle was more important than that, even because he was going to save his brother. So Agravain fights through the line, the front line, fights himself through a bunch of guys, gets past the line, starts to run up to where the prisoners are, locked up on what is called the Hill of Wretches. I guess on top of a hill they had a little prison or something, or a little, I guess it would be more like a cage. And he broke through to go break them out. He killed lots of guys to get up there. Like, none of these Arthurian guys, everyone thinks like they're not. They're vicious murderers, all of them. And I think that's kind of interesting that you could be a vicious warlord in those times and be like well revered amongst the public. Like, yeah, he killed like 50 fucking Saxons. What a, like nowadays to me that's a little crazy. Just to be in the military alone, like I feel like that's a place for people like this now, and you just get to be, I guess it's the same thing. You get to come back, you're like, I'm a vet. Not that like I get there's people out there, like I get there's time for war, but like sometimes there's not. Back then they it seemed like they were warring all the time just to like get like, a chunk of Scotland, you know? Like the world's so much bigger now. So Agravain gets up, he releases the prisoners. The prisoners, Agravain's like, you're not free to go. You got to come back and fight. So those prisoners pick up a bunch of swords and stuff from all the dead people Agravain just had, and they arm up. So this little ragtag crew of ex-prisoner soldiers went back to battle and flanked the evil Saxon army. This lets Arthur's army win the day, and it was a pivotal battle in the war. After this battle is when both Gawain and Agravain are knighted for their services in battle. So they get knighted because they are helping in the war, those two. Let's talk about Morgause just a little bit. I did talk about her, Morgan Le Fay, Arthur's sister. She was basically the bad guy in a lot of these stories. She was the one who stole the scabbard that made you invincible with Excalibur. So like that's she's literally the reason Arthur dies later on. She's always scheming something. She wasn't a great mom either. She used to beat the children excessively, you know, so excessively that they say that Agravain got a whooping, as they would call it these days. Got a whooping so bad that he hit his head really hard, and he was out for 3 weeks from his 17th birthday all the way to nearly his 18th birthday. So almost a year he was basically in a coma. Yeah, so he got beat down one time. The only person Morgause was actually really nice to is we talked about this in the Gareth episode that Gareth was kind of a mama's boy. So Gareth got loving mother. Everybody else got neglected, whatever. Like especially Agrevain. Agrevain like got beat a lot. He was the mouthier of them. He was the least chivalrous of the Orkney Bros. Not as well like I don't know if you remember a lot about Morgause. Her dad was Uther Pendragon, or like her stepdad, I guess. Arthur's real father. So I guess Arthur and her are kind of half sisters. She thought her dad was killed. Duke Garlois. I don't know if you remember talking about him in the King Arthur episode, but Uther Pendragon killed that just to take his like he got some spell from Merlin to look like Garlois, and he went up there and like banged her under false pretenses, and then killed Garlois. Anyways, so she always had a chip on her shoulder for Pendragon, especially Arthur as well, because Arthur was their real kid, you know. So yeah, Morgana ends up being the worst of the worst in most of these stories. Mordred's probably worse, like her son who wants to be king. But I mean, she's a bad guy. All right. And growing up, the kids saw this. Well, except for Gareth, but Gawain, Gaheris, Agravain, they all saw that their mother and even their aunt Morgan Le Fay, they were always plotting stuff. They saw women as evil. And the only person really affected was Aggravain. Aggravain brought that on to every other woman that he spoke with. They're all like plotting and ploy. He always had a hard time respecting women. I don't feel like Gawain or Gaheris ever had that, and Gareth really wasn't that. But yeah, she was impossible. Literally describes women as snakes, not to be trusted. So I guess when you grow up like that, you're gonna hate women. I don't know. I wasn't brought up like that, but he was. So when the Orkney boys fought for their uncle in the war against the Saxons, they moved to Camelot. In Camelot, they got a different experience than when they grew up. Agrevain actually meets Arthur's wife, Guinevere, and Guinevere's not a bitch. She's not, she's a nice lady. She's sweet. She's innocent, you know? And Aggravain loved that about her. He loved being around her because it was such a contrast to his mother. It made him kind of spartan up on the masculinity, the toxic masculinity, I guess it would be, and like realize that not all women are bad. There's always bad women, there's bad men, there's good women. So he kind of understood that more, and he took a liking to Guinevere almost right away, and not in a creepy like Lancelot way, more in his own way where he wanted to protect her. He thought she was a treasure. He became, I don't know, inspired by her maybe. He just wasn't used to her. He wasn't used to people like her. Her friends are even like that, and she absorbed her in. So Aggravain became one of a handful of knights who were called the Queen's Knights. So last episode, I told you about Lord Sornham of Newcastle, the Newcastle, who challenged all of King Arthur's knights to fight because he wanted to get rid of them all, so Arthur would have to face them himself. He hated Aggravain because Aggravain killed his brother Duras the Cruel. I mentioned that briefly before. We'll talk about the whole Duras story now. That's one of the major Aggravain stories. So, for some reason, in Britain, in the land of Camelot, in the land of, I don't even know what they call their land anymore, but wherever Druas lived, and Druas loved this hill for some reason. I don't really understand. He lived on top of a hill. There's a tower up there, and he would protect that hill. Anybody who went by that hill, he would kill them. This is my hill. I've got a tower up here. Don't even bother. I'll kill you. His name's Druas the Cruel. I'm sure he did some fucking cruel ass shit. But he was a super nice guy. He just wanted to be cruel, I guess. And he would fight anyone. I don't think he was that bad, but he was terrorizing the surrounding area. And King Arthur and the court all heard about this guy. And Aggravain decides he's going to take on the quest of destroying or taking care of Druas the Cruel in whatever way he ends up thinking that's the best way to do it. Leaves to confront him from Camelot. And he doesn't know exactly where it is. They've heard it's not like they have cell phones and they take pictures like it's in geocaching and shit like that. Like there's none of that. He's searching, and as he's searching, he comes across a damsel who's crying. They call them damsels. A crying damsel and her brother, who is a knight, a young knight, and he's trying to comfort his crying sister. Aggravain, being a knight of the round table, and Aggravain wasn't the most chivalrous, like I said, but he wouldn't just, I don't know, walk past. Like maybe just stop to see, maybe I could help. And the woman was inconsolable. The brother had to speak for her. He told Aggravain that she was sad. She was crying because her brother was just killed on the hill for nothing. Some guy named Druas just took out her brother. So Agravain's gets even more frustrated with this whole thing. He's here to prevent this, and he's watching the actual outcome. He promises the young knight and the woman that he's going to avenge her brother's death, and he's going to go up there and take care of Druas. And they're ecstatic about this because she's crushed, and the brother's a nice little guy. So they kind of point in the right direction. You want to go see Dress? He's going to be up that hill right there, ready to fight always. So Dress, being situated on top of the hill, had a nice view of his surroundings. He could see when danger was coming. So he had the tactical advantage to Aggravain. He saw Aggravain coming. Aggravain didn't even really know where he was when he could get there. So he sat on his horse, Druas, lance down, he's got Aggravain in the distance, and he's just sitting there waiting in the darkness for Aggravain to get within 100 feet of him so he could charge out at him and get Aggravain before he could defend himself. Usually, if you're going to joust someone, you kind of face off and then charge each other. But if you're not paying attention, you could be easily just kicked right off a horse if you don't put up your shield quick enough. Or if you're just like looking the wrong direction. Jousting is a pretty scary thing. You just get splintered to death, like crushed. Agravain's cautiously going up, but he's not, doesn't have a sword drawn or anything like that. He's just kind of like looking for Druas, and Druas surprises him. He gets right quick to him. Agravain, being the knight that he is, he barely had enough time to raise his shield in defense, but somehow he did, and he held on tight to his horse, raised his shield, and upon impact, Druas's lance broke in 100 pieces, just shattered. They both remain on their horses, and usually that would be the end of Aggravain, but he was just a big guy, big strong guy, and he was ready to fight the guy. Druas just ran past him like you would in a normal jousting match, And this gave him enough time to put his helmet down, lance up, shield up, and they charged. They looped around, faced each other again, but this time Agravain's paying attention. Druas made it back up to his tower and grabbed himself another lance, so they had a proper jousting match. And Druas the Cruel was not. He's not called Druas the Jouster. He's called Druas the Cruel. He's not a very good jouster, and he loses. Agravain knocks him right off his horse. Druas lands on his feet, though, surprisingly enough. And instead of just giving up and calling it a fight, he decides he's going to draw a sword. And as Agravain is turning around on his horse, Druas charges him from behind and swipes at the knight of the hard hand. Agravain, after hearing a lot of stories about Druas, knew that this blow was coming. So as his horse turned in one motion, he blocked the sword with his shield, drew his sword, and swung it at the man. In one big motion, cuts Druas's head off, instantly killing the cruel knight. Aggravain gathers up Druas's head, thinking that if he brings this to the crying damsel down the hill, she will feel some sort of comfort, knowing that the man who killed her brother is dead. He has to prove it though, so he's gonna bring the head. I find that crazy that he decides, you know what, to prove it, I have to bring the fucking head. It's amazing. Some crying lady, like, this will make you feel better, and just like the headless horseman, just chuck a head on her lap. So he gathers the head, kind of puts it in his regates. He's wrapping it up, and as he's wrapping it up, Druas actually had a servant who lived with him in the little tower up on the hill, a dwarven servant. So Agravain kills Druas, okay? Gathers the head. The servant dwarf comes out, like wherever he's hiding, I guess it's the tower, and he's got a horn in his hand, yelling and screaming that Agravain was the villain here. Druas is just protecting his stuff. He's keeping the hill safe. You guys came here and killed him. He didn't come out looking for you. You guys are evil. And I can see the dwarf's logic in that. Like, I don't know, you just chopped a dude's head off, gathered it up, wrapped it in fucking cardboard, and just like brought it with you. Like that's kind of evil. If I saw someone do that, I wouldn't be like, oh, there's got to be a story there. I'd be like, that guy's an evil fuck. So the dwarf tells Agravain that if you're not an evil man, he asks him, he tells him, then you'll blow this horn as loud as you can. That's the only way you can prove it. Take my horn, blowing it. I don't know why Agravain accepts this challenge. Like I don't know if that was a thing back then. Like horns prove innocence. Like if you have a horn in sight, you can just prove that you're not a bad dude. Just blow it. But Aggravain was a cocky guy, so he just probably like so arrogant. It's one of the things that's descriptor of him all time. Arrogant, cocky. So he probably thought if I just blow the horn, this will shut this stupid little thing up. I can leave. So what harm could a little toot on a horn do, really? So he does it. But dwarves, dwarves, always tricksters. It was a trick, obviously. And that horn was actually used only in emergency. Only if something really terrible had happened to Druas the Cruel was that horn to be blown, because within earshot of that horn was Newcastle, Sornham's castle. Sornham, his brother, Lord Sornham of Newcastle, was Druas's brother. And if you honk the horn, you know you got to come help your brother. Sornham came, even though he was super sick, and his oldest son was like, "Don't go, Dad. You're sick. Don't leave." But he leaves, and he brings an armed brigade with him. Agravain meets up with the crying maiden, gives her Druas's head, and surprisingly, it did give her some comfort. She was like, "Oh, good, he's dead." What do you know? Agravain starts to head back to Camelot, and on the way, he runs into Sornham and his brigade. Sornham easily surrounds the Knight of the Round Table, and Sornham learns of his brother's demise and wants revenge. He's got Agravain surrounded. There's nothing really he can do. So Sornham says to himself, I think I'm going to keep him as a prisoner. POW. Maybe he just wanted to torture him, or he wanted to like prolong the death of him somehow. So anyways, he does bring him to Newcastle, puts him in the brig. Do they call it a brig? Probably a dungeon. Puts him in the dungeon. The damsel sees all this, and her brother, I guess, and they head to Camelot to go warn the other knights about Sornham and how he took one of their knights captive. And that's where we pick up where we had with Gaheris. Gaheris had to come save him by outsmarting the evil Scornham in the fight, and he actually saves his brother, who was actually a prisoner at the time, Aggravain. Aggravain, while arrogant and cocky, he's also known to be the most handsome of knights. Maybe not the smartest of knights. You can't have all three. You can't be smart, handsome, and nice. You know what I mean? You got to be one or two of each of them. So he's got the handsome, and that's about it. I think. I don't think he's nice or smart. He's a hottie, remember? So even though he's so handsome, he wasn't a ladies' man like Harris. He didn't have the gift of gab. He didn't have. He wasn't. Not that I feel like he's just kind of like incel-ish. You know what I mean? Not necessarily a bad looking guy or a bad guy to get with or whatever. It just he just was awkward with girls. Like he always would try to like pursue ladies, and they weren't receptive at all. It wasn't like all the other nights where they were just like save a damsel, bang a damsel. It was like save a damsel and awkwardly fumble through a conversation and then leave and then get frustrated about it. That's what I feel like by reading all this is he was that guy. He did have relationships. It's not like he was like celibate his entire life. He had a couple relationships. He got married a couple times. The same day as his brothers, actually, when they married Lioness and Lynette, when Gareth and Gaheris married the sisters. At their wedding, actually, Agrevain gets super hammered and he starts to hit on Lynette. So to get the creepy Agrevain off Lynette's back, she introduces him to her cousin, a princess of Scotland named Flory. And like he was drunk and he thought it was a great night, but he didn't like her. He was drunk, you know? He was just I guess he was feeling sad. He's like jealous of his brothers. He was known to fight with Gawain all the time. They were always like fighting amongst themselves, jealous, competitive. I don't know if you guys have brothers, but that's what brothers are like, especially when they're young. They get really competitive. As you get older, you don't care as much, but I don't know. I was competitive with my brother for sure. So Agravain wakes up, not drunk anymore. Still married though. That doesn't go away. There is another story of him falling in love though. King Arthur threw a tournament. And these tournaments were to get together all the knights and test their skills. Sometimes there was a damsel up for grabs. If you win, you get the hand of like a princess or something, just to find out who the best man is. I feel like this tournament was more of just like a showcasing your skills, entertainment for the masses kind of deal. And yeah, whether there was a damsel up for grabs or not, these damsels loved these tournaments. They loved watching some guy just get murdered and then like go hit on the big murderer guy because that guy was tough. He's hot. Look at his muscles. He fucking can cut a guy's head off with one swing. God, I love that guy. And the Knights love this. The Knights didn't like they played into it too. They loved fighting for the hand of women. Girls would typically go for the winners. That's what you know what I mean? Some of these weren't as deadly as this one. I think this tournament would have been less lethal because there was a lot of Arthur's guys in it. Like this tournament, Agravain didn't do very well. He lost three matches in a row. He lost one to Lancelot, he lost to Tristan, and he lost to his brother Gawain. So, he's not the winner. He's kind of a lonely guy, already awkward with the girls. He's probably grumpy after this whole thing. And after the tournaments, there would be a grand feast where everyone could come join and drink and tell stories and get to meet each other. Like, so it was tradition to go. I know he was aggravated about the whole thing, about losing, about the girls not talking to him, all that stuff. So he came, but he was pissed and he was sitting in the corner watching everybody else get all the ladies. I know he was pissed sitting in the corner by himself. Then this lady comes in. She's getting ushered towards King Arthur. She's demanding some help from the king, like a lot of people did. I find it kind of uncouth to do it at a feast after a tournament, but I guess if you need help, you need help. I really love this story because this girl that's like asking for help, they describe her as like plain, which that means just ugly. They don't call her ugly. They say she's fine looking or whatever, but she's not as good looking as everybody else at the party. Not the hottest woman at the feast. As soon as he saw her, it was as though he was struck by a stone in the chest. And he said he felt lightheaded just by the sight of her. So her request to King Arthur was that he send a knight to her father's lands to help them rid of an awful dragon who was terrorizing the land's inhabitants. Arthur, hearing this tale of a dragon terrorizing, stands up, gets everyone's attention, and tells them the whole story and says, "Who of my knights wants to go and save this lady and her family?" Nobody volunteers, which is rare in Arthurian time because all these guys wanted was glory and get another quest on their belt and become number one knight of the round table instead of number four. So no one stands up. I find it interesting that the plain girl, no one wants to help either. Like the ugly girl. Like if she was a hottie, everyone would have jumped out of their seats, but she's just plain. That was my first suspicion when I first read this. I'm like, as if like the whole hot girl theory was even true back then. So nobody jumped up to help. Took a couple seconds before anybody did anything. About 30 seconds of silence go by. And Gawain looks like he's about to get up. And just as he does that, it shakes kind of like Agravain out of his like mesmerizing stare at this plain girl, and says I'll travel with her to help her with her quest. This girl looks over at the haughty Agrevain, and she blushes and bows her head to her new helper. They travel to a castle where it was ruled by an earl who was the brother of King Scotland. Her name was Laurel. They have a modest meal at Laurel's father's house at the earl's castle. Father, the earl, loved Agrevain. He was talking to him all night, which I find weird because Agrevain's kind of a dick, but maybe this guy was a dick and they kind of like two birds of a feather. And Aggravain just kept starting like, okay, well, what's with this dragon? What do I have to do? And the Earl would just kind of like, we'll talk about that later. We're having dinner tonight. We're having fun tomorrow morning. So after dinner, they show him to his room. As soon as he walks through the door, he notices right away there's metal bars on these windows. What the hell? And he turns around and he's about to ask, why is there metal bar? And as soon as he says that, they slam a thick wooden door, reinforced by like rivets and everything else, lock him in the room. He's a prisoner. The ugly girl was playing him the whole time. So I find that funny too, because now it's not only like no one wanted to help the ugly girl in the story, it's the writers like, oh, like whoever wrote the story originally is like, oh, it's an ugly girl. You should have known she was evil. Like they're writing like hot girls are just like damsels in distress, but ugly girls are evil witches basically are gonna lock you in a fucking room. Anyways, Agravain realizes that the dragon probably isn't real now, and this was just a ploy to kidnap a knight for ransom. So he sits in that room for 4 days, stewing over this Laurel girl. As if she did this to me, you know what I mean? Like she took my heart, she broke my heart. Like I could just picture him inselling the fuck out of that cell by himself. Like women don't deserve me. I'm a catch and a half. No one would ever talk to Laurel if it wasn't for me. Then on the fourth day, he hears like a scuffle outside of his door, a couple thumps, and the door kind of slowly swings open. And his savior was none other than Laurel. She actually came back to save him. She told him in that moment that she loved him from the moment she saw him. It wasn't like this ploy to get ransom out of him or something like that. They wanted to try and convince him to marry Laurel. I loved you too from the moment I saw you. And it's pretty romantic, I guess. And the reason the knights didn't actually get up, it wasn't because she was ugly or anything like that. It's because this trick had been pulled by the Earl of the part of Scotland before three other times by the Laurel's older sisters. They kind of backed three knights into a corner and made them marry them so they can get them out of prison. So they get married. Well, they don't get married instantly. They kind of want to spend some time with each other. So Agravain sticks around for a couple weeks, 3, 4 weeks, maybe a month and a half, and they get to know each other. And then 3, 4 weeks in that time, so they get married. And they get married, and they return to Camelot, and they're happy. Another Agravain story is, well, it's kind of like wrapping this up a little bit, but Agravain later in life, years later, actually, it's they go on lots of missions, but they don't really get too deep into. I bet you if I got into like reading Mort Arthur and all that kind of stuff, I could give you more stories. But like this is the most interesting one that I found. So Agravain is actually one of the first people to hear about Lancelot and Guinevere having an affair, which ruined Agravain. Agravain, like I said, he looked up to Guinevere. He thought she was different than all other women, but now he thinks that even Guinevere, the nicest, most pure woman he ever saw, even she can't be trusted, and it messes with his head. So when they decide to burn Gwen at the stake, he volunteers to be one of the ones that brings her up. Arthur assigned them to do it because he knew they would get the job done properly. Well, he thought they would because they didn't. Last episode, I said it was Gawain and Gaheris that tied her up. It wasn't. It was Agravain and Gaheris that tied her up on the stake. And they're just about to light the match, and Lancelot comes in, saves the day. Agravain dies much in the same way his brother Gareth and Garrus at the hands of Lancelot. Lancelot was trying to save Guinevere from getting burned at the stake, tied her up. Lancelot sees Agravain coming at him, and he purposely thrusts his spear through Agravain, killing him alongside his brother. I don't think dying by a spear would be any type of fun. I think it would be one of the worst ways to die. And yeah, Agravain dies beside his brother Gaheris. Arthur finds their bodies. He's broken by the whole thing. He gets on his knees. He does that thing like you hear about in movies where you get on your knees and you're like, what? Yeah, like Arthur does that with like, why my nephews? Why? And then he takes their bodies, brings them to the family tomb, puts them in there, and not long after that, Arthur's would be laying aside them in that tomb. after the whole Lancelot Arthur fight. And that's the end of the Agrevain story. Agrevain, like I said, he's an Orkney knight. He's not one of the most famous knights. He is like my theory about all these knights representing something allegorically, I guess, into like real life situations. Like I feel like Aggravain would be like frustration or like he was still a good guy. He still had lots of redeeming qualities, but he also was like vengeful and like he wouldn't have mercy. He would kill a bad guy. He wouldn't let them walk away with like a promise of being good in the future. He was more of a Batman than a Superman. And I think he represents like by any means necessary or, you know, not everything that's good is actually not everything's good is bad, not everything bad's good, like the duality of life. So thanks for listening, guys. If you want to hear more of this stuff, go give us a rating and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you can give reviews. If you want to leave me a message, you can email privatedicksdetectiveagency@gmail.com. I'll email you back, I promise. Go on to YouTube or there. I'll interact with you a lot on there. If I catch your message, you can find me all over the internet. Just message me. I'd love to hear from you. And Merry Christmas. Next episode that comes out will probably be on Christmas Eve, maybe Christmas Day. See if I can get an episode recorded with RJ as we're having a hard time connecting, but it will be a Christmas special. Hopefully it comes out before Christmas. And hello from Mexico.
I just watched Private Dicks and I think RJ is the funniest.
What? Come on!